5 years. 5 years ago, the panini, the panorama, the pandemi lovato changed our world. 5 years, can y'all believe that? Because that actually feels both like way too long and like we blinked an eye and here we are 5 years later. Anyway, since it's been 5 years, it felt only right that I finally film a YouTube all about my New York Times collage journals. Y'all, this project that I started in March of 2020 absolutely changed my life. Completely and forever changed the course of my life in ways that are honestly wild to remember. So I want to flip through all of these journals, show you my collages, tell you the story of how this project came to be, kept going, and ultimately changed so many things for me. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel. I am so glad you're here. And without further ado, let's get into it. This is my New York Times collage project. These are all of my collage journals. It's so many, but I want to take you first back to where it all began. This is where it all started. A simple moleskin journal. So the story is, in February, early March of 2020, I started to feel like there's something going on in the world. Things are happening, things are whispering, Twitter is flurrying, the news is happening way too rapidly. I feel like this is important. Something's coming, something's happening, but I can't process the news, keep up with the internet, all of that quick enough to record it. Y'all know I'm a big journal girl, and I found that journaling wasn't working for me. With all that was happening and with how quickly it was all changing, I didn't have enough time to process it all. So my solution to that was I'm going to pick one news source, the New York Times. I'm going to choose to get just the Sunday paper, one thing a week, the most compiled, kind of digestible, curated news source. Do I know that that is not a perfect news source? Yes. Do I know that there are other perspectives and POVs and that's the same thing? You know what I mean? Yes. And also it felt like the best way at the time that I could find my way in to understanding, to processing, and ultimately to trying to make sense of what was going on in the world in a way that worked for me. I did not plan to collage them, but I started reading the first issue of the paper, March 1st, 2020. And because I am who I am and because I'm a child of the 90s, I started cutting things out and I made the first ever collage. This is absolutely wild to look at now. It has such headlines as "Trump makes us ill." If you're not genuinely concerned about the future of the United States, you're not paying attention. Somewhere along the way, we became the best of friends, and global pandemic warnings ignored. Isn't that wild? Absolutely wild. So what came from that was I decided, you know what, this is going to be what I do. That first one was just a simple half page, one page, not even two. I cut out the poem from the New York Times Magazine because I think those are really beautiful. And then I decided week after week I would make one single spread of what I found interesting, what I found noteworthy, newsworthy, beautiful, compelling, challenging, important, whatever. And I would make a collage. This is week 2. Lots of hand washing reminders. Daylight savings. This is wild to me to look back on. Honestly, I'm probably gonna feel a little emotional looking at this. We didn't have the Olympics that year. We were watching Love is Blind. We were looking at statistics on coronavirus. So I'm gonna keep flipping through 2020 as I kind of give you the story of what happened about all of this. So I started doing these every single week. I started to post them on my Instagram. I used a hashtag #RadCollagesNYT. If you know, you know. And then pretty quickly, other people started collaging the New York Times too, or other newspapers, other sources of information. And it started to grow into what we affectionately called the Rad Collage Club. That was also a hashtag. And soon, hundreds of people every single week were collaging the New York Times paper and posting it on Instagram. And it was really, really cool. I actually don't think that happened until maybe later in 2020. It kind of took a while for that to sort of build and catch on. I'll have to go back and look at kind of what the timeline was for all of this. Sidebar, this was the week of my birthday and there was a birthday cake illustration in the paper. And a really fun little Easter eggy thing is that every single year for the 4 years I did this project, there was a birthday cake somewhere in the Sunday New York Times paper the week of my birthday. And that feels like just like a little gift from the New York Times editors. And I thank you so much. That was so fun. I started posting about these on TikTok. I got my TikTok in 2020, like a lot of people did, because I was bored in the house and I was in the house bored. And I eventually posted about these and it blew up. Absolutely went bonkers, got wild numbers, like million numbers. And that's when things really started to shift for me. Until then, it had just kind of been this way of me processing what was happening in the world, in the news, trying to kind of make sense of it in real time. Obviously, as we got into the summer of 2020, there was a lot of racial reckoning happening. I live in Richmond, Virginia, which was a key city in some previous eras of America, and there was a lot going on around me, and I was trying to make sense of all of that, kind of grappling with what it meant to be an ally and to stand up for justice in an era that really needed that, still does. And I'm like getting chills talking about this. So once I posted about this on TikTok and it kind of went wild, this week was Washington Post because I didn't get a delivery that week, and I found really quickly that the Washington Post was not nearly as beautiful as the New York Times. I was loyal to the New York Times. New York Times people reached out to me and were like, hey, we saw your collages on TikTok. What? And we have this special at-home section that's in the New York Times paper now because we're all at home, and it involves on the back page some way of using the paper to create crafts or an activity. Would you be interested in writing an article about how you use the paper to make collages every week? Would I be interested? Like, I majored in media arts and design in college with concentration in journalism. Yeah, I'm interested in writing for the New York Times. Yeah, that's a dream I didn't know I had, but it is now coming true. Yes, sign me up. Where do I sign? Like, it was one of the coolest, most surprising things that came out of like having a presence on the internet and on social media. So I got to write an article. I got paid to write about my collages in the New York Times. It got published in the New York Times. It was like this super meta, incredibly cool experience and opportunity. My aunt and uncle live in New York City, and they were like going to the little bodegas and like buying all the copies they could find. And it was just like so special to me. This is my article. This is my New York Times article that got published. They put pictures of my collages in the paper. Like, that's my byline. It was incredible. It was incredible. Here's the little like blurb at the top. Looking for a way to digest the news and make sense out of everything going on in the world, or just to create something beautiful? Turn your newspaper into a collage. It's a great way to make a time capsule that archives memories, records newsworthy events, and tells a story from your point of view. That's why I did this. Like, that is why I did this. I did not realize how much I loved collage until I started doing this project, and I was not in it for like art purposes necessarily. Like I've said, I was just really trying to make sense of what was going on in the world and kind of process things in real time, capture things that were beautiful or interesting to me, like these poems. But watching other people collage it with the hashtag Rad Collage Club and seeing the way that all different kinds of people were turning the same paper, for the most part, into very different pieces of art was really cool. It felt like such a unique sense of community and camaraderie around a very challenging time in our society. We obviously went into an election year that 2020 fall, and things got more intense, and it just felt really meaningful to me to be able to turn all that was happening into something that felt significant and meaningful. To see what other people were doing with it felt like we were just like connecting across differences. And it really meant a lot to me. I feel like I could say that 12,000 times in this video, just like trying to explain and describe what this project did for my life, and just showing me the value that making creative art has in times of struggle. Did this solve anything? Nope. Did this, change the world? No, but it helped me sift through all of the noise and kind of digest, processes are words I'm like repeating myself so often saying, but it really made something out of all the mess. And I think that matters. It feels like alchemy in a little bit of way. Sometimes I try something different. I used like a circle punch one week and made kind of a circle dot collage version out of the paper because I was kind of struggling to find some creative spark. And at the end of the day, this kind of just set my life on a different path and opened up opportunities I didn't know that were possible, like getting to write in the New York Times and getting to teach collage workshops at different local libraries and zoom into libraries that were out of state to show them how I was doing this. And it just connected me with people that I never expected. It grew my TikTok exponentially in a way that I never could have predicted. And it just became a really significant way for me to process the world in 2020. So this was March through December of 2020, all in this tiny little notebook. I've had a lot of people tell me like, oh, that'll end up in a museum one day. Maybe it will, or maybe it will just be a thing that I did for me. But regardless, it mattered and it was meaningful. And I'm so glad that I did it. I didn't stop in 2020. I initially thought with this project, like, oh, this is how I'm recording the pandemic. This is how I'm capturing what's happening with COVID. COVID didn't stop. COVID didn't end when 2020 ended. Then there was an election and all of those things that I was mentioning. So I kept it going. I did upgrade to a larger size of moleskin. This gave me a lot more room to play and a little bit more space to just kind of make art out of it, as opposed to just trying to kind of limiting myself by what I had capacity for on the page. I really, really liked using this larger size. This I think is the XL size of the moleskin. So this is my journal from 2021. I'm not going to talk through it because y'all have heard everything I have to say about this at this point. So I'm just going to flip through and show you what 2021 looked like in the Sunday New York Times. And we started into 2022. I admit this is where I kind of started to fall off a little bit on my consistency. But I did do most of 2022, and then I got into a little bit of 2023 and 2024, and I will explain that when we get there. But let me flip through what I've got from 2022. As far as 2023 and 2024 go, I admit I was fatiguing on this whole project. I like to call myself an art dabbler. I like to mix things up. This whole first half, until June 4th, I didn't do any. I kept a stack of newspapers kind of just piling up in my house, and I recently decided to recycle a lot of them. I kind of knew I got to the point with this project where it was really hard to go backwards and kind of retroactively collage what I hadn't been collaging. And it kind of just felt time to call it, to honor what I had done and honor what the project had meant to me in the time that I was doing it, and kind of let the rest of it go, which is to some of you probably is like, yeah, duh, of course. And to me, as a very like Enneagram 1 perfectionist, completist kind of person, it felt like, but if I don't have every single week from the time that I started it until today, then like this is not worth anything. And that's just not true. The weeks that I collaged are deeply meaningful and significant and beautiful, and I'm glad that I have them. And it's okay that I did not do every single week of every single year. And I need to tell myself that and remind myself and like rewind and play that to myself on loop so I can process that and remember that. But I am, like I said, really glad of what I did and how this turned out. And I'm letting myself kind of let the weeks I didn't do it go. I do still have some papers stacked up because I do want to complete all of the marches from 2020 through 2024. So I can really have those kind of 5 years worth. I think that will be really cool. Maybe I'll work on that later today. But let's see, from 2023, I really did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 out of 52 weeks. That's all I really got for 2023, but that's okay. 2024, we have, I think, even less. We did, start strong. The first week of the year, awesome, love that for me. And then we didn't do the next week or the next or the next or the next. Okay. Again, I am proud of what this project was. I am grateful for the way that I engaged with it for the time that I did, and it's okay that I don't have every single week. I still have a lot of weeks, and they're really meaningful, and that's okay. She says to herself over and over and over. I also have this journal of kind of all the extra random clippings that I found beautiful and meaningful that weren't necessarily in the actual collages, just kind of more like the art stuff. Eventually I'll probably just like turn these into normal collages, but those are all of my New York Times collage journals. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Some takeaways that I would love to share are that it matters to find a way to process the world that works for you. That might mean journaling. That might mean doing like a 5-year journal where you just do a blurb a day, or one of those a line a day journals, or it might mean collaging the paper, or it might mean posting on Instagram or TikTok little vlogs of your life. I just think it's significant that we capture our stories and find ways to share them with other people. I think it makes us feel less alone. I think it reminds us that we're all in this together. I think it shows us the way that we need each other and the way that we can have an impact on the world and what's going on around us. We don't have to be kind of passive bystanders to the way that the world is playing out. And I think capturing what's happening is one way that we can stay informed and stay aware and engaged, and then do something about it, right? Find ways to connect and serve and grow and evolve and work toward change and work toward the kind of world that we want to be a part of, so that maybe these headlines one day aren't so bleak and dire. I think there's a lot that continues to happen in the world around us, and I can feel really helpless or hopeless about all of that. But a through line in my life is that it matters to take time to create art and to tell my story and to capture and curate and kind of create beautiful things in messy and hard times. So I would love to encourage you to do that in whatever way that works for you. If you are intrigued by this and you want to start collaging a paper or magazines or any sort of print goods, it really is very simple. Truly all you need is a pair of scissors and some kind of glue. All that I used throughout all of these journals were Elmer's glue sticks, like the kind you used in kindergarten. You don't need anything more fancy than that. I had a lot of people be like, do you have like archival level glue? No. And so if that means that these are going to break down one day, that's okay. I have taken a picture of every single spread that I have created. I have also printed those in photo books, so I have kind of a different version of what's in here. And ultimately, if they all go away one day, that's okay. because the beauty was in the process for me, and in the making and the creating and the digesting the world as I turned it into something beautiful. I just keep coming back to this idea of alchemy, of turning kind of this raw mess of stuff into something beautiful. And it takes work, and it takes, you know, kind of a cutting and tearing and a like ripping it all up, but there's something really magical about that process that I really enjoy. And I have found my way back into collaging in other ways recently, and I'm really, I'm going through magazines and cutting out a bunch of things and turning them into art, and I'm finding that I still really love this art form. So even though my way of engaging with it doesn't look like it did here, it's still continuing in its own way. Thanks for being here. You have made it through some hard years in the world, and I want to honor that a lot of people didn't make it, and we lost a lot of lives through the pandemic. And there was a way that I reckoned with the grief of it all through these pages, and I continue to do that, and I continue to mourn and grieve all that we've lost, not only from COVID, but from police violence, and from racial injustices and wars and genocides and so many other horrific things happening around the world. These pages contain some of those stories, and it's partially one of my ways of honoring each and every single one of those lives. If you lost loved ones over the last few years, I'm so sorry. Know that I am holding you in my heart and thoughts and prayers. That is not enough, but it is something. We've gone through a lot in the last 5 years, and I think this project really reminds me of that. It's been hard, it's been heavy, it's been a mess, and I just hope that things will improve from here. Let us hope. Thank you for being here. Thanks for engaging and caring about the things that I care about and the things that I've created. It is a joy to get to share them with you. I hope this maybe inspires you in some way to start creating a project like this, or like something else that helps you process the world. Whatever that looks like for you, I hope you find it, and I hope you stick with it, because this is proof that it matters to keep doing the thing that you find enjoyable to do. Thanks for being here. Like and subscribe, follow my channel, all of the things. I'm going to pop up a little way that you can subscribe, a way that you can keep watching on my channel if you are new here. Again, I'm Rachel. This was the hashtag #RadCollagesNYT. You can also find other people's work at hashtag #RadCollageClub. I am all the rad reads about every single place you can find me on the internet. Vroom vroom. I'll see you next time.